In my last video, I listed 7 things nobody told me before I became Catholic, and item 5 was that it would cost me people. That section was 4 minutes long. Judging by the comments, it should have been the whole video. So here it is, the itemized bill. Not the poetry. The invoice. 8 line items, what each one actually cost, what I got told in advance about each one, which is mostly nothing, and at the end, the credits, the things I was warned I'd lose and didn't. 2 rules before I start, because a video like this can go wrong in 2 directions. Rule 1. No martyr act. Nobody imprisoned me. I live in a country where changing churches costs you a few relationships and some dignity, not your life. And there are Christians on this planet right now, paying for the name of Jesus with things I will never be asked for. Compared to them, my invoice is small, and I'm going to say the numbers out loud without pretending otherwise. Rule 2. No bait. This is not a video designed to make converting look heroic, so you'll do it. If anything, this one might slow you down, and honestly, some of you should be slowed down. Jesus said, "Count the cost before you build the tower," Luke chapter 14, and he did not say, "The tower is cheap." He said, "Count." Let's go through the bill. I expected fights. I got something quieter and worse. There were no confrontations. Nobody sat me down. What happened is that I was reclassified. In the mental filing of men I'd prayed with weekly for a decade, I moved from brother to situation. You can feel the exact week it happens. Invitations stop being extended, not withdrawn, just not extended. Texts get shorter. Someone says, "We should get coffee," in the tone people use when they mean the opposite. Nothing you could point to and address, which is precisely what makes it unfixable. You cannot resolve a conflict nobody will admit is happening. 2 men from that group are gone. 10 years of Wednesday nights, and then nothing. One of them I'd stood next to at his father's funeral. And I want to say the fair thing about them, because they're not villains and they're not stupid. In their theology, I hadn't changed denominations. I'd joined the institution their whole spiritual identity was defined against, and by their sincere reading, endangered my soul doing it. Watching a friend do that isn't like watching him switch political parties. It's like watching him walk into traffic while telling you he's fine. Their distance was grief management, not malice. I know this because I did the same filing to a guy on our worship team who became Orthodox in 2019, and I never once thought of myself as unkind while doing it. What it cost, stated plainly. 2 friendships, several more that thinned to acquaintance, and the specific loneliness of having the most important thing in your life be the thing you can't talk about with the people who used to know everything about your life. This one I didn't see coming at all, because it isn't a relationship. It's a role. For 15 years I was the Bible guy. Not a pastor, the layman who'd read more than the pastor, and everyone knew it. When someone had a question about Romans, it came to me. I taught the men's study. I did the apologetics seminar. My identity, if I'm honest to the bone, was partly built on being the most equipped person in the room, and that identity had scriptural furniture around it, so I never had to look at it directly. Conversion took the whole thing away in a weekend. In my new parish, I was nobody. Worse than nobody, I was the new guy with opinions, which is a category people back away from. 9 months in a folding chair learning who Jesus is from a volunteer with a flip chart, as I said last time. And here's the humiliation I actually deserved. The 60-year-old woman in the next chair, who couldn't have found Habakkuk with a map, had been visiting the sick at the county hospital every Thursday for 22 years. Between the 2 of us, exactly one was doing Christianity, and it wasn't the one who could pass Greek participles. The cost was my expertise as currency. It bought nothing anymore, and I've come to think that was less a cost than an unbilled correction. I'd been overpaid for years. I'm going to be careful here because my family is real and they didn't consent to being in a YouTube video. The headline, It took my mother about 2 years to say the word Catholic without a pause in front of it. Not hostility. Something harder to sit with. The pause was love. The sound a person makes when they're choosing their words about a thing that frightens them for your sake. Holidays acquired a topic that had to be steered around, and once a family has one of those, everybody can feel the steering. Nobody in my family was cruel about it, not once, and I want that on the record. But the ease was gone. There's a version of being with your parents where nothing has to be managed, and I traded that for something more careful. There's a further cost inside this one, and I'd tell any prospective convert to look straight at it. You will be tempted to fix your family with arguments, and arguments are the only tool that is guaranteed not to work. Their reaction isn't a proposition, it's grief and fear. When I finally stopped arguing and just kept showing up for 4 years, things thawed. My mother asks real questions now. But that took 4 years, and no one told me it would. And in year 2, I was fairly sure I'd broken something permanently. Mass is not optional. That was a genuine adjustment. In my old church, attendance was a strong good habit. If you were tired or traveling, or the weather was bad, you streamed it, or you skipped, and nobody thought less of you, including God, we assumed. Catholicism says Sunday Mass is an obligation, and once you accept that, your weekends have a fixed point in them that doesn't move for your convenience. Travel plans bend around it, so do hangovers, in-laws, and Sunday morning flights. Then the rest of the calendar arrives. Fridays have a penance on them. Lent has actual teeth. Not give up chocolate, but fasting days with rules. Holy days land midweek and expect you at a church at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. Confession is a habit you're expected to keep, which means periodically scheduling one of the least comfortable half hours available to a human being. Total honest cost, a meaningful amount of freedom. I have fewer unclaimed hours than I did as a Protestant, and my year has a shape imposed on it that I didn't design. I'll tell you the strange part, and then move on. This is the line item I complained about most in year 1, and value most now. A religion that never inconveniences your calendar has already told you what it thinks of your time. I covered this in the last video, so I'll be quick, but it belongs on the invoice because it is a real, ongoing debit. My old church was excellent. The music was genuinely good. The preaching was, no argument, better than most of what I now hear on Sundays. The whole hour was designed, with care and skill, to move me. And I gave that up for a liturgy that is not aimed at me, delivered in a building with a guitar, Mass at 10, and a homily that sometimes wanders, where a baby will scream through the consecration, and no one on the staff regards my engagement as their problem. The bill here is emotional, and it comes due on the flat Sundays. I traded a service that reliably produced a feeling for one that reliably delivers a fact, and a fact is a colder thing on the days you wanted to be warmed. Nobody tells you the trade in those terms. I'd have taken it anyway, but I'd have liked to know. This is the deepest one, and I've never heard another convert put it on their list, so let me be exact. I gave up once saved, always saved, and whatever you think of that doctrine, I now think it's wrong, and I made a video about the verse I think ends it. You should understand what it does for the person who holds it. It provides a floor. Whatever else is true about your worst week, your terrible thought, your relapse, your 2 years of coldness, it's handled, permanently, and the transaction closed the day you believed. That is not nothing. It's a genuine comfort I lived on for 20 years, and I know men whose sanity in dark seasons rested on it. Catholicism took that away and replaced it with something more demanding and, in my experience, more honest. Hope, real hope, grounded in the objective sacraments, rather than in a memory of a decision I made at 14, but not a guarantee. Mortal sin is possible. Falling away is possible. Paul says he disciplines himself lest he be disqualified, and the branches in Romans chapter 11 can be cut off, and my tradition now takes those verses at their word instead of explaining them. The cost, a certain kind of sleep. There are nights the old floor would have been useful. The correction, and this is important so nobody mishears the video. What replaced it isn't terror. Catholics are not supposed to live afraid, and if you meet one who does, they've misunderstood their own church. The Catechism condemns despair as strongly as it condemns presumption. What I have now is a real relationship with real stakes, plus a confessional, 40 minutes away, that resets the account whenever I've wrecked it. That's not less assurance. It's assurance of a different kind. Less like a receipt in a drawer, more like a marriage. A small, chronic, permanently weird one. To my Protestant friends, I'm the guy who left. To many cradle Catholics, I'm an odd enthusiast who keeps citing Ignatius of Antioch at the parish potluck and gets visibly emotional about the Eucharist in a way that makes people check their phones. I am not fully at home in either room, and I've stopped expecting to be. Converts online talk about this constantly, and nobody warns you in advance. You will know more about Catholic doctrine than 90% of your parish, and less about being Catholic than any of them. You'll know which council settled which heresy, and not know when to stand. You will be, for years, an immigrant with fluent grammar and a heavy accent. Last item, and it's specific to doing this publicly, so skip it if you're converting quietly. Making these videos means my worst arguments are permanently searchable. It means people from my old life watch me discuss the theology that separated us, which has cost me at least one relationship that might otherwise have survived quietly. It means a comment section where, on any given week, Protestants tell me I've betrayed the gospel, and a certain kind of Catholic tells me I'm too soft on Protestants for saying Wes Huff is careful and Gavin Ortland is charitable. Both of which I said, and both of which are true. If you're thinking of doing apologetics online, the cost isn't the arguments. It's that you will be tempted, weakly, to win rather than to be honest, and those are different projects that look identical from the inside. Now the other side of the ledger, because an invoice with no credits is propaganda. I was told I'd lose the Bible. I read more of it now than I ever did. 4 passages every Sunday whether I like it or not, and the whole thing on a 3-year cycle, which is more scripture than my Bible church ever put in front of me in a year. I was told I'd lose Jesus, that Mary and the saints would crowd him out. The opposite happened, and I'd testify to this under oath. I have received Jesus in the Eucharist more times in 3 years than I received him in any form in 20. The devotion to Mary I feared has, in every person I've watched up close, run parallel to love for her son, never against it. I was told I'd lose my personal relationship with God and get bureaucracy. What I got was a place to put my sins out loud, an obligation that gets me in the building on the mornings I'd have stayed home, and a 2,000-year-old prayer rhythm that carries me on the days I've got nothing. That's not less relationship. That's a relationship with infrastructure. And the one I did not expect. I lost the low hum, the permanent audit that ran under my Protestant years. Is that right? Is my reading right? What if I'm wrong about all of it? Went quiet. And it has not come back. I described that in the last video as the anxiety ending. It's the single largest credit on this page, and it isn't close. So, was it worth it? That's the wrong question, and I want to end by saying why, because it's the most important thing in this video. Worth it is a calculation about my happiness, and if that's the standard, the honest answer is that year 1 was a net loss, and I'd have been more comfortable staying. Comfort was never the argument. I didn't become Catholic because it would improve my life. I became Catholic because after a year of reading, I concluded it was true, that Christ founded a church with authority, that the men who learned from the apostles believed what Catholics believe, that the book I'd staked everything on came to me from that church's hands, Once you land there, the bill isn't a reason to reconsider. It's just the price of the thing you now think is true. So the right question isn't whether it's worth it, it's whether it's true. Settle that first, in either direction, with your whole mind. The arguments are all on this channel, and I've tried to give the other side its best form every time. Then pay whatever it costs, or don't pay it, but at least you'll be spending on something real. And if you're mid-payment right now, if you're in the season where the invitations stopped coming and your mother pauses before the word, I have two things for you. First, some of it comes back. Not all. One of those two men calls me again. It took 4 years and a funeral. Second, you're not crazy, and you're not alone. And the number of people walking through this exact door in 2026 is larger than it's been in decades, which I made a whole video about. Tell me your line items in the comments. Converts, candidates, and anyone who paid a bill going the other direction too. I mean that. This comment section is better than most, and I read all of it. This is actually Catholic. The tower cost more than I estimated. I'd build it again. God bless.